Good evening. Welcome to the Livonia Public Schools General Board of Education meeting of September 19th, 2016. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers.
Here.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mrs. Laura.
Here.
Mrs. McDonald.
Here.
Mrs. Bonnefield is here. President Burton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mrs. McDonald, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We welcome everyone back to our first official general or voting meeting, depending on what you call this type of meeting of the Board of Education. If you are following along from home and you would like an agenda, you can follow that. You can find that on our website. That is found at www.livoniapublicschools.org. If you hover over the board tab, you can drop down to agendas and find our agenda for this evening and follow along. If you are in our audience this evening, we welcome you. We thank you for joining us. If you'd like to have an agenda and you may not have picked one up, you can find them on the table just outside our doorway. Along with the agendas there, you can find a blue audience communication slip. So if you would like to participate in audience communications, which will be coming up in just a little bit in our meeting, if you can fill out a blue slip and pass it down to the end of the table, I will make sure to receive that, and then I'll make sure to be able to call on you at the appropriate time. This evening's meeting is, as we said, a general or a voting meeting. What that means is that the topics that are before the board this evening have been before us for discussion and study, typically at least 2 other times at a study session and a committee of the whole. Therefore, since we have talked about these items quite a bit so far, you may or may not see the level of discussion that you would expect before we vote on these items. Please know that that is not because we take these items lightly or because we're not talking very much about them, but rather it's because they've been talked about at least twice already before they get to this evening. If you would like to see more of the board's discussion on some of these items before we come to a vote, I really encourage you to either attend or tune in from home on cable or watch on our website at a date after the meeting, the Committee of the Whole meetings. The Committee of the Whole meetings are televised. They stay on our website. And that's the type of meeting where we have a lot of discussion back and forth about items. It's not uncommon for us to ask administration to bring more information back to the board. When the board feels comfortable to go forth with a vote on those items, then they are brought to a meeting such as tonight. But I do encourage you to tune into the Committee of the Whole meetings. I do find them some of the most interesting meetings because we really get into quite a lot of detail on the items that come before the board. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 3, communications, and we will hear from Ms. Jenkins.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Burton. Good evening, President Burton, members of the board, Superintendent Oquist. It's great to be back. I've got a wonderful presentation to kick off our brand new school year. For the 3rd year in a row, my first task of the new year was to travel the district with my camera and photograph all of the renovations that were made possible by the 2013 bond issue. I must say that while the projects are similar at all of the schools, each has its own unique character. It's hard to believe that we're already so far along in the $195 million in renovations, with 17 schools completed or nearly completed already.
Wow.
Wow. This summer, we saw the completion of Franklin High School and its Performing Arts Center, which was an 18-month project, and the near completion of Stevenson High School renovations with the start of their Performing Arts Center. This is in addition to the complete renovation of 3 lower elementaries, an upper elementary, and a middle school. So without further ado, I'd like to take you on a little tour via photographs here on the screen, and Nick will be showing each slide for the viewers at home as well. So we'll begin our tour. Just with a brief overview for the community, this was the 3rd phase of the summer of the bond issue projects that took place during the summer of 2016 at the following schools: Grant Elementary, Hoover Elementary, Randolph Elementary, Johnson Upper Elementary, Emerson Middle School, Phase 2 of Franklin High School, and Phase 1 at the, getting ready for the continuation and the completion, 2017 completion of the Stevenson Performing Arts Center. Okay, another overview, just reminding the community that all of this work that you're about to see was made possible by the 2013 bond issue. That was a $195 million investment into the Livonia Public Schools community, bringing up our property values, improving our neighborhoods, transforming the learning environments for all of our students, providing essential technology, and making our schools safer. So we'll start out at Grant Elementary, located at 9300 Hubbard, which was Grant Elementary was built in 1956. And I'm not sure how closely you can see the teal tile wall. Yeah, maybe we could lower the lights a little bit there. The teal tile wall at Grant is no longer there. The next slide will be a little bit closer. The renovations that took place at Grant included exterior entrances, the full exterior, as you can see, the entrances, new pavement, offices, classrooms, restrooms where needed, hallway floors, lights, paint, acoustic ceiling tiles, classroom technology, furniture is to come, security enhancements, and infrastructure upgrades. And I'll show you a few of those. As you can see, the teal tile wall is now a beautiful, it almost looks like stone, that brown tile. It looks really, really awesome. Whole new look for Grant. A new secure vestibule. So there was a bit of a redesign at each of our buildings in order for the public anyone coming into the building now they're kind of locked in the vestibule and they have to buzz the office, which is much safer. Speaking of the offices, all of the schools' offices had the same renovations as well, with new furniture, carpet, windows, ceilings, lights, paint. They were redesigned for efficiency. Also, new phone systems, PA systems, new secure vestibule with access control, and new security system. We'll move along to the classroom renovations. This is a picture of an old classroom at Grant Elementary, followed by a much brighter, cleaner, new classroom. You can't see from the picture, but the windows, you'll see new windows in some of the other examples. But every classroom has floor-to-ceiling improvements, floors, ceilings, lights, windows, shades, doors, with wireless clocks on the walls, which is a huge bonus. I guess there was a problem with the clocks keeping time in past years. Wonderful air handling units, which help circulate the air in the classroom. Furniture, again, to come. New PA systems, casework, sinks, counters, paint. And don't forget the technology. This particular class at Grant had not had its projector installed yet, but it will. All of the classrooms will be getting their interactive data projectors, document cameras, Wi-Fi, which is district-wide, as you know, mobile learning devices, which are to come, and classroom amplification system. More renovations at Grant. The photo on the left, as soon as you walk into the lobby, the large kind of open space to your left is now meeting rooms, conference rooms. A couple restrooms were renovated completely. Moving along to Hoover Elementary, located at 15900 Levan. Hoover was built in 1964. Here is Hoover Elementary just mere 3 months ago or so. And there's Hoover now. And I won't go over the entire list, but each school, of course, had the same exact renovations. They all just kind of looked a little bit different. The color schemes were chosen by the staffs at each school. There's Hoover's new secure vestibule, new office, equipped with a couple of cute little students. Here's an old classroom, and this photo really shows the old lighting and the old ceiling tiles quite well. And the bright new classroom. New furniture is to come, but this particular teacher has a few of the yoga balls for the students to use. If you can see those in the corner there. Here is facing the front doors. So this would be the main hallway, and then one of the restrooms. Moving along to Randolph. Randolph is in our Churchill triad, and that is at 14470 Norman. And Randolph was built in 1966. This was probably the most dramatic, in my opinion, makeover. I didn't have a real clear before picture, but you can see that kind of canopy entrance there in the center of the photograph. That is no longer the main entrance. Okay, so here is Randolph now. You can see the canopy is still there. Excuse me. But the main entry has been moved over to the right, under the famous arches. And once you step through those doors, you are in this massive office, which is just beautiful. The photograph on the right is their lobby area. The carpeted area on the left was their former office space. Some more renovations. I love the colors in this restroom that they chose here. New lockers, new hallways. And when we say new hallways, these have the new tiling on the floors, the new ceilings, lights, paint. There's a new classroom. You can see the teaching board. The teaching wall is an accent color, and that's on your right, on the right side of the photograph, with the whiteboard, which works interactively with the projector. The gymnasium was redone with a new floor, paint, and acoustical tiles on the walls. Johnson Upper Elementary in our Churchill triad, located at 8400 Hicks Road, was built in 1966. This is another dramatic improvement to the entire facade. Here's Johnson before and Johnson after. Here's their fairly large secure vestibule. Straight through to the office here. There's an old classroom again with the old-fashioned blackboards. A new classroom. You can see this is a good example of the tile that they chose. Johnson's colors are like a taupe and a cranberry color. Very, very nice combination there. In the upper right is an example of the projectors, which we've seen throughout the Phase 1 and Phase 2 as well. Here is the old cafeteria. Notice the ceiling. And now the ceiling is acoustically friendly, I suppose you would say. It has like 3 different levels and some very nice tile work on the back wall. Some more renovations. This is a music room, again with the acoustic elements on the ceiling. New lockers, tile in the hallways. This renovated restroom I thought was the tile work is just beautiful. And they even have a bicycle rack in the coordinating color. I thought that was very cute. Moving along to Holmes. Holmes is in our Stevenson triad, as you know, located at 16200 Newburgh, built in 1967. Here is a before picture of the front of Holmes Middle School, and after. Again, with their secure vestibule, leads right to the office. Really nice office. Where I took this photo, behind me was another office. So, yeah, very, very nice. Another example of the old classroom. New classroom, and here is a peek at some of our new furniture that's starting to arrive in some of the schools. This was the art room formerly the art room at Holmes, and is now Mr. Keberly's room. Very light and clean and neat. The music room is all the rage at Holmes. Very bright. You can see the windows line. I think they go all the way around the ceiling. It's beautiful. Here's the new art room, which has an industrial feel. It's got the exposed concrete flooring and the exposed ceilings. Lots of light. Hallways at Holmes. Here's a picture of the tile in the lockers prior to the renovations, and then I kind of caught the same shot but added some more lockers on the right. And the same treatment to their cafeteria as at Johnson. Very nice. And we'll move along to Franklin High School, located at 31000 Joy Road. Franklin was built in 1962. Here's a before shot of the front of Franklin, about half of it. And this is what it looks like now. Oops. Pardon me. Here's a picture of the old South cafeteria. And then the difference here is amazing. Here's the new cafeteria with the new furniture even. Okay, here's some office renovations. This is the main office. They same spot, same footprint, but they just they moved it. So it's the front doors to the main office are right at the vestibule there in the front of the school. Classroom renovations are now completed. There you've got the technology with the projector, new lockers, which look fantastic. And moving along to the much talked about new Performing Arts Center. This was during construction. I think they were in the process of digging the pit there. And here is a photo of what it looks like now. We can't wait. I'll mention a few details about the opening at the end of my presentation, too. Here's the lobby of the Performing Arts Center. Those lights are so cool. They look like they're floating. I thought that was just so neat. And the same treatment with the red metal. It resembles a theater curtain. Here's from the west side of the new building. And from the front. Other renovations at Franklin, the entire music room, the entire fine performing arts wing was completely renovated. Here's a new music room on the left. And this room, interestingly enough, it's in the same space as the old theater. So they raised the floor in the theater, in the old auditorium, and created this classroom and other classrooms that lead straight through that hallway behind. Oh, it's just immense. It's awesome. And another music room here on the right. This is the choir room. And then moving along to Stevenson High School, located at 33500 6 Mile. Stevenson was built in 1964. And you would never know it now. The office renovations were completed. The guidance office is really sharp. Their carpet is really nice. I love it. All of the classrooms are completed now, and they have their new furniture in and their technology. The cafeterias were also renovated. I believe they're awaiting cafeteria furniture, though. And the patience factor has to come into play right about now for the Stevenson community, just as it did this time last year at Franklin. They're making way for the new Performing Arts Center at Stevenson. So here's a photo of the demolition of the old section of the school on the southwest corner of the school. The footings have gone in. Completion this time next year. So throughout this summer, you saw new roads, new sidewalks, just all kinds of construction going on. But somehow it all pulled together just in time for the start of school. So I also wanted to mention the technology upgrades are being phased in after piloting various mobile learning devices. Here's a picture on the left here of Chromebooks that arrived recently at Cooper Upper Elementary, along with the cart there. I believe a cart is 50, how many in a cart? 36 Chromebooks in a cart, and they charge themselves while they're sitting there in the cart. And then Mr. Lechta here at Emerson is using the interactive projector on the whiteboard. And that concludes my presentation. I do have a couple notes. So watch for details to come out from the district on a grand opening celebration, and we plan to invite the community a little bit later this fall. We haven't set an exact date yet, but it will be coming soon at Franklin High School. We would love for the community to come out, and it's just really something to be proud of. It's amazing, as you could see just from the photos. Also, we will be posting a video of the bond improvements of the summer bond projects on our website soon. Those will be located under the district tab if you click on videos. And then I will also be posting this slideshow tomorrow under the district tab if you click on bond issue. And I'm also going to make it a featured article on the front page. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent, Susie. Yes.
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Centers.
I just want to thank everyone that worked really, really hard over the summer, from our staff to all the men and women working on our buildings, most of whom were not in air conditioning and just excruciating heat. Andrea will testify how hot those buildings were, but everything looks amazing. And every year these seem to go a little smoother, and the results are just spectacular. So thank you, everyone.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
I was at Stevenson this last week for the open house, and I have to say the teachers really, really loved the new furniture, and I thought it was great that I didn't have to sit down and worry about getting pinched from the broken seats, which was a little scary the year before. So it was really nice, and the teachers just really, they couldn't get over the appreciation of how nice the furniture was and how it works. And those whiteboards are crazy.
Yep.
One of the teachers was just hitting it with their pen and the board with the pen, and it was, I don't know how it works, but it's cool stuff.
Comments or questions from other board members?
Thank you.
What I'd like to add, too, that I've heard consistently with our buildings that are renovated is morale is up, not only among the staff and parents, but among the students. Behavior issues are down. You wouldn't think that kids may necessarily notice such a difference, especially at the younger grades, but it's evident that they do. They're taking more respect and more pride in their school. It's exciting to see the kids as they come back the first few days, and to see even our youngest students ooh and ah over all the cool things in their school. And we absolutely have our community to thank. We try to educate the community very, very much on the need for these improvements, and we cannot thank our community enough. Like you said, it has benefited our students, our staff, our parents who are in our buildings, benefited those who don't even have children by our property values. But it's amazing. And as we're seeing now the majority of our buildings have this transformation, it's really, really exciting. And our community ought to be really, really proud of what we're doing together. So, one of the things, too, from a parent perspective that I specifically really appreciate are the secure vestibules, the security issues that are going in. When these buildings were built, as Mrs. Jenkins mentioned, they were all built in the 50s and 60s. These buildings predate a lot of us. And those security measures weren't necessary then, but they are now. And it's nice from a parent perspective knowing that the district has taken every measure possible to make sure that our kids are safe. And that's where some of our community tax dollars went, into making sure that those are as safe as they possibly can be. So, anybody else have anything else to add? No? Alrighty. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We are moving along to item 3B, recognition of Lisa Abbey, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services. If I could have Ms. Abbey join me at the podium. We'll start here. Livonia Public Schools is blessed to have 2,000 employees. 2,000 employees that serve are some 15,000 students every day in this district. Many of our employees serve our district for many years, and Lisa Abbey is one of those people. Lisa is one who the board specifically works so closely with. There is rarely an issue that comes before our Board of Education that does not have your fingerprints all over it. And we're grateful because you are smart and sharp and on top of things. And I have yet, in my 7 years on the board, I have not seen a detail slide by you. Lisa has blessed our district with, I believe, 14 years of service here, and we are very reluctantly giving her up to her home school district. She will have the pleasure, instead of driving about a 45-minute commute to get here to serve us each day, to going around the corner. There was talk about simply not accepting your resignation for that purpose, but we decided we must be mature, big people and allow you to do so. It was not without our own. Our little kicking and screaming. I can absolutely say with certainty that when you were pursuing your degree in accounting, you did not foresee yourself overseeing a $195 million bond. Even 6 to 8 years ago, I'm sure you didn't foresee yourself doing that. For the benefit of the public, Lisa came on to our district in our accounting and finance department, and as more and more people retired or we had to go through cutbacks, goodness knows, in every organization over the last 10 years or so, there have been cutbacks, and Livonia Public Schools is no different. As we lost key people, rather than replacing most of them, we just divvied up their responsibilities. And on to Lisa Abbey's plate, in addition to overseeing our $140-some million a year budget, and doing so with stellar reviews every year, which relieves great stress on the part of the board without not having to worry about such a thing. You've gotten us through budget reductions that are unparalleled in any of our lives. You've also taken on our operations department, which is huge. Used to be a whole other person that took care of this. Lisa has taken it on. Lisa has taken on oversight of transportation, oversight of food services, and then when our community blessed us with a $195 million bond, that also fell into Lisa's spare time. So luckily, thankfully, our district has, as we said, 2,000 employees that work every day to make this district work. And there are departments in each one of those areas that do a lot of legwork. Each one of those departments is over the oversight of Lisa Abbey. We can't tell you how much we value your services. This board has recommended and nominated Lisa Abbey as Michigan School Business Administrator of the Year the last 2 years, and came very close to the top in the state of Michigan, from what I understand. We thought you were number one. I know. We voted you for number one. We are grateful for your services to our district. So many people who work so closely with you are grateful. We're going to miss you. As I said to Lisa when I found out about this not too long ago, professionally, it just scares me, the thought of replacing you, because we've relied on you so heavily. Personally, I'm going to miss you, because we've developed a friendship, and I'm going to miss seeing you on a regular basis. But as a mom and as a member of your family, I get it. I understand. I would do the same thing to be that much closer to my family. In appreciation for all that Lisa has done to serve our district, we purposely chose something small, so it's not going to be large and ostentatious on your wall somewhere. But we do have a little memento of some of your time with Livonia Public Schools, and this reads, Livonia Public Schools, with fond appreciation to Lisa Abbey for being able to keep money in the bank, people paid, buildings renovated, kids fed, buses running, and so much more, and always with a smile. From your friends at Livonia Public Schools.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
I am quite certain Andrea Oquist would like to add a few things, and then we'll turn the podium over to you.
Thank you.
Sure
Briefly, 'cause
thing.
I know you don't want a long time.
Lisa's asked for brevity.
I
that
did,
right?
I did. Thank you.
Well, certainly it is our honor to acknowledge Lisa and all of her contributions this evening. So from all of your cabinet team, we are a small but mighty group, and you have been an extraordinarily important part of that. So Colleen, you shared the enormity of Lisa's duties. Periodically, we do let her go home and sleep, in case any of you were wondering. But it is a pretty unique role. It's not unusual in districts that the finance responsibilities and operations responsibilities get combined, and oftentimes many districts do that. Rarely in a district our size is that done. When we add on top of that, in 2013, the almost $200 million bond for which Lisa was assigned as the point person to oversee for our entire district, you can imagine that role grew, and it grew because of her intelligence, her commitment, her heart, her mind. And one of the things I've always appreciated about Lisa as a colleague, certainly as a superintendent, is she never limits her thinking to the finance role, the business role. As a global thinker and as someone who cares about what we do for kids each day, the questions that she asks, I mean, she can get to the heart of things, right? I mean, I'm looking at my cabinet friends, and there's, with a couple of questions, she can refocus us right back to what is important. So your fingerprints were all over that previous slideshow. So you've been an important part of that from the get-go. I cannot even think about how many hours we've spent from starting out with hiring architects and construction managers, and then overseeing every aspect of the bond thus far. So I'm so pleased that we're this far along. Please promise you'll come back when we're done.
Yes.
And celebrate and come through once again. We value you for so many reasons, and we wish you only the very, very best. We'll miss you greatly.
Thank you. Very kind words from both of you. Thank you. I have worked closely with you all and have enjoyed it very, very much. I just have to say I have been here over 13 years and successful in my role because of the people sitting here, my cabinet friends, and an awesome business department and operations department. These are just exceptional people, and I think they represent all of the exceptional people in Livonia. As I wrote a lot of notes to the board and to other people about leaving and thanking people, the thing I kept finding myself saying over and over is just how everyone in this community serves the students, the staff, and the LPS school community with their heart and with their soul and every part of themselves. I mean, you guys know you're out at everything. You're out at everything. All these people back here are out running from building to building to take care of things on a daily basis. This is just a district that cares deeply about the community, about the school community, about the students in this school district. So I have been so pleased to be a part of it. You've helped me grow and become the person I am today, so I am grateful to you and to all those people standing literally behind me and supporting me over the last 13 years. Has meant so much. So with that, thank you. I will appreciate it, as I keep telling Andrea. Phones, FaceTime, we'll chat, we'll talk. You'll find the east side. It's not that far. And I do appreciate it very much. And I do have to say a couple of just proudful moments. I love the bond issue. When we were sitting there going through all that and thinking about all the decisions that have been made, this isn't about me, believe me. This is about a team at every school who put their time into it, summer, off hours, school hours, picking out colors. Really, it doesn't sound like much, but when you look at that and you see the coordination of effort to get those schools renovated, and we had a week less this summer, so I'm going to thank Plant Moran Cressa for keeping up with our CMs and architects and all of our bond people out there to get the schools open and ready as they possibly could be for school and for our students. And I know it's cliche, but it really is why we're here. So thank you for helping and supporting me. I appreciate it.
Moving on to item 3C, written communications. Do any board members, I apologize. Would any board members like to comment on Lisa Abbey's? Moving on from our school district, I jumped ahead there.
I think you said it very well.
Covered it.
Mrs. Burton, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, all righty. Else?
yeah, you and Andrea.
All righty. If you didn't get the message, we will miss you. Yeah. Moving on now, the next item on our agenda is item 3C, written communications. Do any board members have a written communication that they would like to share with the board? Seeing none, next item on our agenda is item 3D, audience communications. Audience communications is a time that the board sets aside to listen to members of the community who would like to share their thoughts with the board. It is very intentionally not a question and answer session, but rather a time for the board to listen to concerns. We will have a 3-minute time limit on each speaker, according to board policy, and we do ask that our speakers respect that time limit. And the purpose for that is so that everyone has a fair and equitable time to approach the board, and that there's an opportunity for anyone who wishes to do so. Mr. Johnson has volunteered to be our timekeeper. We have found that to be a little bit more polite way rather than having someone interrupt a speaker. So if you are speaking and if you hear the timer go off, if you could wrap up your comments, we would appreciate that. Also, as far as response from the board, the role of the board is threefold. The first responsibility of the Board of Education is to hire and evaluate our superintendent. We are thrilled to have done so a year ago and have Mrs. Andrea Oquist as our superintendent. Makes us very, very happy. The second role of the Board of Education is to set policy for the district. And over the past handful of years, this board has reviewed over 600 pages of policy to make sure that we are up to date and current with policies as they need to be. The third role of the Board of Education is to set the long-term goals and match the finances up to those goals for the school district. So if your item that you would like to address the board on this evening falls under one of those three areas, you can expect a response back from the Board of Education directly. If your item that you would like to address to the board falls under almost any other area, that would be what we call the day-to-day operations of the district. And if so, you can expect a response back from our superintendent, Mrs. Andrea Oquist. Just want to kind of explain that so folks would understand what the process is during audience communications. I do have 2 blue slips of people indicating they would like to speak to the board this evening. The first is Mary Lee Olson. Good evening.
Good evening, Board of Education, Mrs. Oquist. I am a resident of Livonia, so I get to speak, right? I'm also a teacher. I'm also a parent of 2 alumni, class of 2005 and 2009. And my children were so well educated by LPS, they went on and both have degrees in music education. I have been teaching music for 16 years at LPS, and am just thrilled to spend the last 10 years at Franklin High School, and I bet you can guess why I'm so thrilled after tonight to be at Franklin, but I was thrilled even before all that happened. So I have my bachelor's and my master's degree in music education, and my major was in piano. So I am just, you don't have to even respond, I just want to respond to you. After spending a year with my fellow high school choir directors, and with Melody and with Heather, researching to get the very best investment of the bond money. Last Tuesday, Ann Fisher and I, and on Saturday, Byron Turner was there. We went to Steinway Gallery and picked out our Boston grand pianos for our choir classrooms, and we picked out our 7-foot Steinways for our performing arts centers. And it was a chance of a lifetime. It was candy. It was wonderful. And I just want to thank you for allowing us to be part of the process. Thank you for letting us go with Steinway. We feel like these we know that these pianos are not going to depreciate. They will only appreciate. They will never be worth less than what you have paid for them at any time. And that's the Steinway guarantee. But if you're a musician, especially a piano major, that's been playing, actually I don't look that old, but I've been playing for 50 years. When you sit down and play that piano, it's different. It's different. And you can be proud that our Performing Arts Center at Franklin and the Performing Arts Center at Stevenson also are going to have these absolutely gorgeous instruments. And the public may not know, but they will know when they hear it. They'll know that there's a difference. So thank you so much. And we're looking forward to part 2 of the digital and acoustic pianos as you are deliberating over those. We're very excited to have them. We've got all our junk pianos set aside. They're all like everywhere at Franklin, and we're anxious to get them out of our building and get the new pianos in. But Tuesday was just such a high for us. And I wasn't there on Saturday with Byron, but I was with Ann, and it's just so exciting. So sometimes you get the short end of the stick. So I just like to say thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. You are most welcome. It's our pleasure. The next speaker is Jody White. Mrs. White.
My name is Jody White, and I live in the north end of Westland. I'm actually running for school board. I've been honored to use the Livonia public school jurisdiction since August of 2014. I was excited for our children to attend our local public schools. I dove into the policy and procedures, 684 pages of them, she's right, I read them, the student handbook, and the administrative rules prior to enrolling our children. Once satisfied, I even went through the hoops to take online classes, get fingerprinted, and get certified at RESA to be an $8 an hour noon monitor for Churchill. We have a nice Churchill room now, and hopefully the kids will take really good care of it. As a current member of the School Board of Trustees, you have a duty. Dana Winnery has used his authority to have Keith McDonald escort me out of the school and would not allow me to punch in as a noon monitor in February of 2015. He was under the authority of Randy Leopold at the time, was able to produce an April 2nd, 2015 slanderous letter about me, and I filed a complaint on March 31st, 2015, just prior to the PTSA meeting with 2 Churchill administrators. The complaint referenced the police report, the court-ordered evidentiary hearing, the subpoenas, and the March 23rd LPS Prevention and Parenting Seminar to help those of us families that were bullied. The letter written by this director has been used against me again on May 23rd, 2016, after I scheduled to assist in a community event looking for experts in the financial field to help our students during a reality fair. The duty that I believe that you should have, and if I run for school board I would take seriously, is that we've given your panel of directors and superintendent on March 24th a complaint against Principal Keith McDonald as he continues to retaliate against my family after 3 seniors assaulted my son when he was walking into his own freshman classroom. Instead of handling the case of fraud and inappropriate misconduct of Andrew Hess, Lyndon Lewis, and Keith McDonald, you guys chose to take out a sentence at the November 16th school board meeting. And the testimony read as how the case had to be assigned to the police officer Andrew Hess, who is paid by the school and is not mandated to follow the school policy and procedures. The policy and procedures have been conveniently changed because of this comment, even though it was removed out of my testimony. We have been patiently waiting for the investigation report to prove that Andrew Hess and the principal of Churchill did in fact interview the witness list for my son regarding the one inappropriate text message during the gym class. Instead of getting our evidence, Andrew Hess was able to contact our home and give us great news that the evidentiary hearing was dismissed, but we didn't want it dismissed because we need to get resolve about what happened, because our son has got a record now because of what happened. And the part that is why I'm here today is I've been told I filed a civil rights complaint with the city. They won't talk to me unless I hire an attorney. I've now hired an attorney. This was never meant to go this far. I was never wanting to involve attorneys. The information that Gary King wrote on here does not match the truth. We're almost done because what I have here is the FOIA report, a check. I have to pay a FOIA report to get discovery.
Mrs. White, if you could conclude your comments, please.
So I need to know who I can give this check to because we are in a situation. Okay. So I'm going to give you this, and I'm going to give you the complaint that I did give you 3 months ago, the letter from Dana Winnery.
Mrs. White, if you could conclude your comments now, I would appreciate it.
Your superintendent is asking for information, so I'd like to give it to her. And then this is the letter. You might want to talk to your attorney. I'd like to know who Gary King is, though, and how he has information about.
Mrs. White, I'm going to ask respectfully that you honor our 3-minute time limit and conclude your comments
This was
now.
recorded, so you don't edit out my stuff.
Thank you. The next agenda item this evening is item 3E, response to prior audience communications. I do not have any response to prior audience communications at this time. The next item on our agenda is item 4, consent agenda. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the following consent agenda items as recommended by the superintendent. 5A, minutes of the regular meeting of August 15, 2016. 5B, minutes of the closed session of August 15, 2016. 5C, bills for payment September 20, 2016.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Laura. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Yes. President Burton?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. And if you could pass down your closed session minutes, please? Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 6, instruction matters, and item 6A is the presentation of the summer 2016 professional development programs. And for that, we'll be hearing from Mrs. Alice.
Thank you very much, President
Thank you.
Burton. Good
Welcome.
evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity this evening to share with you some really wonderfully rewarding professional development programs that occurred just last month. I'm going to start with the 8th annual opening day for K-12 administrators that took place on August 17th. It was hosted and sponsored by Schoolcraft College. Administrators from 6 neighboring school districts come together for a day of professional learning. The first half of the day, we participated in a presentation by Kim Marshall. He is the author of Marshall Memo. It's a weekly newsletter that is designed to keep educators well-informed on research and articles pertaining to education. His topic that day was 8 major mind shifts and its implications for superintendents, administrators, and teachers. And then following his presentation, each of the school districts then participated in a half day of professional development targeted for their school district. And so for LPS, our superintendent and cabinet members provided our administrators with our department updates and key initiatives that we have planned for the year. We also had an opportunity to see a similar slideshow that you saw tonight on our Phase 3 renovations, and you can imagine the oohs and the ahs that occurred that afternoon as we watched the slideshow. Another key agenda item that day was an update on the work of our district climate and culture goals and our focus areas. Our administrators had a chance to review the school climate survey data, both individually and in small groups. And then they had an opportunity to post the cultural changes that they would be excited to see in their schools for both their students and their staff. And we ended the day by doing a gallery walk and having administrators then walk around and read the postings of their colleagues. On August 29th, our 18 new employees attended a new staff orientation. They had an opportunity to meet our superintendent and cabinet members. We had an opportunity to meet them. It was a half-day program that took place right here in the boardroom. We had an opportunity to share with our new employees what our district and department priorities are and initiatives. So they heard about our shared vision, our collective commitments, our district climate goal and focus areas. They heard about the continuous improvement cycle and the role that it plays in school improvement initiatives. They heard about our focus on public safety, our board policies, and a number of other topics. And then on August 30th and 31st, we had 2 full days of professional development for all of our administrators and teachers. And each of those days was a half PD day that the district provided, and the other half was a day of PD that our schools provided. So on August 30th, all of our administrators and teachers attended a half-day training on our new teacher evaluation tool, the 5 dimensions of teaching and learning. That took place at Churchill High School. It was led by Ben Mainka. He is the Associate Director for the Michigan Association of Secondary Principals, as well as a trained consultant for 5D. Teachers had a chance to become acquainted with the philosophy behind 5D. They were introduced to each of the 5 dimensions. They did a deeper dive into each of them. And then they left with a general understanding about their new teacher evaluation tool. And the feedback that we received from staff was that it was a very positive experience for them. Our support staff members, our ESAPs, our SAPs, our school social workers, psychologists, and EST also participated in a half-day of professional development targeted at their teacher evaluation tool. Their training was led by our Dr. Jen Terrio and members of the Student Services Department, and they really focused on how best to improve their teacher evaluation tool so that it was more meaningful to them and more accurately reflected the work that they do. As I mentioned, the second half of the August 30th PD Day was an opportunity for schools to engage in professional development. Here we have a picture of the Rosedale staff. They engaged in a book study on the book An Innovator's Mindset, which also was written by the keynote speaker the next day, which leads me then to August 31st, which was our Level Up LPS Day. This is a day that is dedicated to integrating technology with learning. LPS again took place at Churchill High School. Teachers and administrators gathered together for a day of learning, collaborating, creating, and connecting, all focused on taking our learning about technology to the next level. We had 1,000 staff members in the Churchill auditorium, so you could really feel the enthusiasm, the excitement, and the energy in the room. Our day began with an inspirational keynote address by George Curris. He is the Divisional Principal of Innovative Teaching and Learning for Parkland School District, located in Stony Plain, Alberta, Canada. His presentation was based on his book, Innovative Mindset. It included messages that dealt with how to have student engagement through innovation, as well as a shift from creating problem solvers to creating problem finders. His presentation made us laugh, made us cry, made us wonder. He really challenged our thinking about innovating our schools and our classrooms so that they are more relevant and engaging for our students. The thunderous and continuous applause at the end of his presentation confirmed to us that his message resonated with our teachers and our administrators. Following the keynote address, our teachers and administrators attended different breakout sessions. There were 2 50-minute blocks of time with about 20 to 25 different breakout sessions. Each of these sessions were led by our staff members who presented to their colleagues, or we had a few guest and vendor presenters as well. In this picture, we see 2 of our staff members, Terry Gagola and Rochelle Frankfurt, leading a breakout session. Sessions offered teachers opportunities to update their web pages, attend Google Classroom presentations, and learn how to use our new classroom technology tools that were purchased with our 2013 bond. In this picture, we see our new Dell Chromebooks that are being used by the teachers. We now have the carts of Dell Chromebooks in all of our schools, so we're very excited about that. And in this slide, you can also see pictures of the new desks and chairs, all purchased with our 2013 bond funds. We also had students involved in Level Up. David Mitchell, Holmes Middle School tech teacher, facilitated a breakout session where some of our high school students shared with us how they're using social apps and their mobile devices, and how they're bringing these tools into our classrooms and into our schools. And students from the Churchill High School National Honor Society helped guide teachers through the hallways at Churchill High School. And I have to give a shout out to Eli Cavallero. Eli is a Churchill High School senior. He coordinated the lighting and the sound system at Churchill Auditorium both for August 30th and 31st. He is amazing, just did a fabulous job. We're very thankful for his skills and talents. The second half of the August 31st PD Day, then, our schools engaged in PD related to either their school or department initiatives. And at the elementary level, administrators provided an introduction to our Priority Project. This is a collaborative effort between our district's curriculum department and our elementary principals. The Priority Project provides our teachers with a much-needed narrowing of the Michigan ELA and math standards, and we call those our priority standards. These are the standards that we consider to be our top priority in our district. The Priority Projects also include some instructional shifts that we would expect to see in our classrooms as teachers teach the top priority standards. September 1st was a professional development day for parapros. Approximately 200 of our district parapros attended a professional development program at Churchill High School. There was a general session on abuse and neglect and one on behavior and data collection. And then parapros had an opportunity to select from different breakout sessions to attend on topics such as assisting students with medical needs, crisis prevention training, and supporting students with autism. These professional development days provided our staff with new understandings and insights and ideas, and helped to define, refine, and extend our knowledge, skills, and practices. And as we grow and develop our skills as educators, we bring that learning into our schools and into our classrooms. And the bottom line is educator growth equals student growth. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to share with you the many and varied professional development programs that we had for our staff last month before the school year started.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? No. Alrighty. Thank you so much. We've heard for many, many, many years that Livonia is a lighthouse district, and I believe one of the reasons is because we go beyond teaching the basics in our classrooms, as Mrs. Alice was saying, to make this learning relevant and exciting and innovative for our students. So I appreciate those in our administration who make sure that professional development is an important part of our teachers' time here in Livonia Public Schools. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 7, Business Matters. Please. Item 7B is the quarterly report for the 2013 bond by Plant Moran Cressa, and we will be hearing from Ms. Abbey.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I can see Mr. Paulterio is coming up to the board table now to hand out the quarterly report and update, and we'll address that in just a minute from the podium. As you know, when we started our planning of the bond process, the Board of Education hired Plant Moran Cressa to be the owner's representative. That means our office, the business office, the operations department, worked closely with Paul Terrio, Paul Wills, and Scott Smith on all of the bond projects. You saw all of that hard work, but behind all that, we're keeping track of all of the numbers. And every month, we reconcile with Plant Moran Cressa on the amount of money that we've spent, where we've spent the money. We agree as to the expenditures, where they've gone, and what our cash flow is. We also, of course, we're working all the time on keeping up with the projects, but specifically, the Board of Education asks us to work in tandem with Plant Moran to make sure that we always reconciled and had two different sets of books, but two sets of books that reflected the same information. So that has been our ongoing process, as well as, an annual audit of the bond funds as well, which the Board of Education will see a little bit later later this fall will be presented to the board, as we have for the first 3 summers as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul to go ahead and give you the update on this quarterly report.
Thank you. So as a couple of other people have said already, another busy summer behind us. I think between construction and technology this summer, we probably put in place about $40 million in 10 weeks or so. So as you can imagine, it was pretty busy and a little crazy with the heat and the weather and a few other, of course, materials that gave us trouble here or there, but everything pulled together through some great efforts by the team. So you've seen the dashboard report before. We haven't been here in a few months, but we tend to give this basically quarterly. So it's 6 different sections here. Goals and objectives, really just talking through, the impetus for the bond and a lot of things that we've talked through before that you guys are familiar with. Obviously, it's a $195 million bond for 30 years with plenty of benefits as were shown in the slideshow. Critical project issues. Obviously, there's a lot of important work being done by the Enrollment and Facility Committee that's ongoing right now. As far as construction goes and the projects that we had just finished up this past summer, right now we're working on getting the heating systems up and running before it gets a little colder out here, getting everything commissioned and controlled and taken care of. We have a lot of punch list issues that are still getting taken care of. You'll see if you're going through the building, there's still some painting touch-ups and floor base and things like that to do, or wall base to do. We also have a lot of training and owner and operation manuals and warranties and just closeout paperwork to do, which includes getting everybody paid once we get all their paperwork. So that's kind of how we're wrapping up this past year's projects. We also obviously still have Stevenson, which is in a little bit different state than the other buildings. We've got the new PAC addition going on out front. The footings are complete on the new addition, and we're currently got the mason out there, the pretty big crew trying to keep up and get everything, all the bearing walls up so we can start with the steel before it gets too much colder. I think we are, fingers crossed, a few weeks ahead of where we were last year. We also had an amazing winter last year for construction, so we probably won't be quite that fortunate, but we're a little bit ahead, so hopefully it'll all work out the same. We're also finalizing the bidding schedule for Churchill and doing a lot of design work. We just had a meeting this afternoon to make sure that the mechanical and electrical engineers are on page and on task with what we're expecting and what the maintenance and facilities department's expecting for replacement of mechanical units, plumbing fixtures, things like that. We should have our initial schematic design estimate numbers probably in the next week or two. So taking a little bit of extra time to make sure we have the scope nailed down before we get those put together. So. And then we'll also have some RFPs coming out, probably, well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but for some sinking fund projects next year. We've got some boiler replacements we're talking about, some parking lot work, some lighting replacements, and a few other projects as well. So I guess to the center section at the top, the budget summary. So this is as of today. You'll see the $195 million bond budget plus the $5 million that was added for some sinking fund work. That's mostly the site work and some mechanical work at the high schools. That gets us to $200 million. We've to date issued $136 million worth of contracts and purchase orders, of which we've paid about $101 million. So $200 million, we've spent $101, so it's safe to say we're about halfway through as far as money out the door. So, and then we have about $35 million left. If you look down below at the cash flow, that is actually through June 30th. So as of June 30th, we had spent about $83 million. So if you look at the difference in basically July and part of August, we spent about $18 million. We don't have all the August pay-apps through yet. They're actually in process right now being reviewed, which will probably be another $15, $16, $17 million worth of work. So as far as the cash flow goes, obviously we've spent about $83 million of the first series. The second series we haven't started spending yet, but we will in the next couple of months. We had a meeting last week to talk through how to make that transition from Series 1 to Series 2, make sure we meet all the accounting rules and regulations, and make sure we track everything appropriately. So, and then 3-month look-ahead schedule. Obviously, as I mentioned, Stevenson has the masonry ongoing. Also some mechanical, electrical rough-ins, and then structural steel we're hoping to start in December. That'll go through December, January, and then you'll start to see the roof go on and some big steps some big milestones. Churchill, we're in the end of schematic design. We're getting ready to start design development. We're tentatively hoping to come back in November and do a design development presentation like we've done in the past, where we can show you some renderings and some pictures of what things might look like, give you a better handle on what the budget is and how the estimate is tracking to that budget, and then give you some scheduled dates of when we think we'll come back with awards or award recommendations. So construction documents will go through November, December. So you got winter recess in the middle there, and then the bid period, we're planning on putting it out on the street in January, which will be a little bit sooner than we did the first 2 years. So again, we're hoping for a little bit better results because of that. And then we're hoping to come back in February with a recommendation for your vote on the 13th. So sinking fund projects are a little bit farther behind there. Actually, we have one for the boiler replacement's actually going out tomorrow. The lighting replacement's already been awarded. I think you guys have already acted on that. And then the paving will be a little bit farther behind. Asphalt prices don't really get set until after the first of the year, so we typically bid that out in more like February, March. It's a little bit, not quite as time sensitive, I would say. And then there'll be some other consultants as well, like we would typically have, security, environmental, abatement, things like that we'll bring to you later next year or next spring as well. Phasing schedule. The one big difference next year will be that we're really not looking at a few of the projects that we had done in the past. The middle schools are complete, the upper elementaries are complete, or they will be once we get everything wrapped up this summer. And then elementary schools, we've held off for a year, waiting until the committee comes back and the board makes some decisions along those lines. So really, the only projects we'll have going on next year will be Stevenson, Churchill, and then the sinking fund projects. So it'll be a little bit quieter, still a lot of work to do. Those are two, the high schools are $20 million, $18, $19 million projects, plus the sinking fund. So it's still a lot of work, but comparatively, it's maybe not quite as much. So that's all I had, other than I did want to say, to echo some sentiments. One is that $40 million in 10 weeks is a lot of work, and it doesn't get done without some great team members. The district administration and staff were integral in helping us get the buildings planned out, get them designed, constructed, get everything cleaned up, moved in. The facility and maintenance department was great along every step of the way for that. The architects and construction managers did a great job as well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the business department, which I've had the opportunity to work with quite a few different districts, a couple dozen really, and the business department here, I think, has been fantastic to work with, and I think that says a lot about the leadership. So,
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board superintendent? Mr. Centers?
Paul, the last couple of years, we've seen increased costs, especially in concrete and labor. That's probably going to continue looking on to next year.
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, the construction market is still red hot. There's, big projects announced every day, whether it's downtown or whether it's in Dearborn with what Ford's talking about at their main campus. A lot of the hospital projects. I do know we just bid out a project in town, I don't want to say which one, but it came back pretty favorable. So I think, if we can time it right, I still think we can stay on budget, but construction staffing, manpower, it isn't what it was, and we're still going to be a little bit challenged, but I think we're on the right track.
Thanks.
Mrs. McDonald?
Thank you, President Burton. Paul, being that we're not doing any elementary schools for next summer at this point and nothing's been planned, is there a time restriction that we have to expend the monies that are currently set aside in the bond? Is there a time cutoff that we have to spend it?
Yeah, there are some regulations on that. Series 1, I think we're good. Series 2, I think we have 3 years, and then we have to spend 85%. So I think we're still well on track to do that. We're planning on having everything wrapped up by the end of 2018, which is well within that timeframe. So.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, President Burton. Paul, I just want to thank you. I've run into a number of people that the middle of August, they had been through or near some of the projects, and they came to me and said, there's no way that those are going to be done. And I stuck my neck out and said, trust me, they will be done. And, you know, your folks have done a wonderful job of getting all of that work done. And we saw that from day one, from the very first schools, when we went through at the end of August. And we were a mere 4 or 5 days away. And I think some of my colleagues looked and went,
Terrified, yeah.
yeah, we had eyes like this going, this is never going to get done. And people don't realize how quickly your folks are able to wrap up those projects and get them ready for school to start. And I think that's a tremendous asset, and it says a lot about your folks getting the job done, and we appreciate that. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Definitely a team effort. Like you said, all the construction folks out there, the district staff, really, we couldn't have done it without them. They were the kind of the last ones in to make sure things were clean and ready for the teachers, so a great effort by all, for sure.
Well, you saved me.
Happy to do it again.
Mrs. Oquist?
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, for your update. I just wanted to point something out on the top left-hand corner. I know our audience cannot see that, but I wanted to point out something important. It reminded me as I was talking to some parents at one of our schools that has not yet been renovated. One of the commitments that was made early on was that every building would be, our reference was every building would be touched within the first 2 years in some way, shape, or form. So we know sometimes, for us, we're glad we have the 5-year phase-in plan. There's a significant amount of work done each summer. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things, and I'd invite you to fill in. For the schools that have not been renovated, there are still some important impacts to student learning that are available. So Wi-Fi has been included in all of our sites and all of our schools. We have new computers in the computer labs and new desktop computers for teachers in the classroom. We've also just delivered mobile devices to all of our schools, not just our renovated schools. So the mobile carts of the Chromebooks have been distributed out in our schools. And so there are many pieces that, although the construction work and the renovation work has not been done, we've had an opportunity to begin to impact student learning and opportunities for teachers and staff in those schools. So sometimes it can feel difficult to be on the end part of that wait. But we certainly have gotten some of those pieces out there, and I think met an important obligation that was important to this board and district administration when we started.
That's a great point. I think some of the other angst could be that maybe we spend all the money on the buildings that go first and not leave any for the buildings that are a couple of years later, but rest assured that won't be the case. We do have the budget money set aside to make sure all the buildings get taken care of, so.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions from the board? I'd just like to reiterate what Mr. Center's already said. It just bears a second comment. It was a beastly hot summer for all of us, and so many of our own staff, Plant Moran Cressa, and all of our contractors were in these buildings without air conditioning, without a lot of air movement even at the time. Some of the interior of those buildings were well over 100 degrees, and we cannot thank these folks enough for the work that they did under really, truly grueling circumstances for an intense amount of hours in a short period of time to get all that work done. But please pass on our thanks to all the contractors on our behalf.
I will, for sure. Thank
you. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 7C, approval to purchase 4 replacement tractors, 2013 bond. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the purchase of 4 replacement John Deere tractors from Bader & Sons, South Lyon, Michigan, for a total cost of $192,334.36.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Ms. Abby, would you like to address this item?
Yes, thank you very much. You do have before you a request from our operations department to replace 4 tractors, 3 at the high schools at Franklin, Stevenson, and Churchill, and one for the maintenance department. As you know, at our committee meeting, Harry came and had an opportunity to have some discussion with the Board of Education about the condition of a lot of our custodial and maintenance equipment. And as you know, we have a little over $1 million in the bond for replacement of equipment. With the first series bond that we sold in June of 2013, we told them they could spend half, and that once we sold the second series, which was last February, that they could begin to put their priorities together for the second series of bonds. So, as I mentioned, you'll be seeing many of these items coming to the board over the next year or so, as well as buses coming for our third series of bus purchases in the near future. So the purchase you have, again, in front of you is for tractors that are over 20 years old. They need to be put to rest, and they need to be replaced for the efficiency of the high schools and the maintenance department. This bid is from My Deal, so that is one of the approved vendors and meets our purchasing requirements, all of our legal requirements, and again, we would recommend that we move forward with this bond purchase.
Thank you.
Happy to answer any questions.
All righty. Do we have questions or comments from the Board or Superintendent? Mr. Centers?
I just want to, for those of you who were not tuned in last week, Mr. Lau went into depth about what the possible uses for these will be. One main use is clearing our parking lots and our pathways. They will be used year-round, cutting the grass on maintenance type of activities. So it sounds like we're going to get our money's worth out of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments from the Board or Superintendent? For those at home who may not see the direct student correlation here, the number one reason when we are having a potential snow day that we cannot have students in our schools is if we can't clear the parking lots early enough and quick enough to get staff and parents and school buses safely in and out. So it doesn't sound like it necessarily, but this is an item that does go straight to student learning, because if they're not there, they're not learning in our classrooms.
Sorry, kids.
Yeah. Bummer, you guys. We got new tractors.
So does this mean no snow days?
Right. The high schools don't have any snow days. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Yes. Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 7D, approval of lease agreement for the gymnastics program. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District approve the attached lease agreement for the gymnastics program with the City of Livonia, effective July 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017, for a total amount of $66,271.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. McDonald. And Ms. Abby, would you like to address this item?
Yes, thank you again. We are pleased to bring forward the lease for the Livonia Public Schools gymnastics program to continue the use of the space over at the Livonia Parks and Rec building. As you know, since that building was originally built and planned, it was with the goal for our gymnastics program to be in there. Excuse me, we have worked with the City of Livonia to find favorable terms to renew the lease. As you know, they had asked for a slightly larger increase than we were comfortable with, and the board asked us to work with them. And as I talked about in depth at our committee meeting, both Mrs. Oquist and I met with representatives from the City of Livonia, including the mayor, and we really had a very nice conversation and talked about all the many ways in which Livonia School District works with the City of Livonia, and this is just one more demonstration of the many, many ways in which we work together. We were very pleased that they had an opportunity to find a lease agreement price that worked within our budget. So we are bringing that forward to you. As we talked about last time, we have an option for the second year, which the board will decide in the future if they want to renew this again for a second year at a slight increase still within our budget. We also mentioned it's important to know that the gymnastics program is self-supporting, which means that the revenues that we take in fees is sufficient to cover the costs of running the program, including the cost of renting this space from the city of Livonia. So the general fund does not lose money by operating this program for the students interested in the gymnastics program. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from the superintendent or the board? Mr. Johnson?
President Burton, thank you. As many of you know, I don't wear just the hat of a school board member. I also wear the hat of the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission for the city of Livonia. So in an effort to avoid even the appearance of impropriety, I will be abstaining from voting on this, and I will also be abstaining from any discussion or vote that may be had on the other side of Farmington Road.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8, Personnel Matters. Item 8A is the appointment of the Director of Finance. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson?
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and employ Allison Smith for the position of Director of Finance beginning September 20, 2016.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Oquist, would you like to address this item for us?
I would be very pleased to do that. We are very pleased to recommend Allison Smith for this leadership role in our district, a very important one, as you've heard this evening, for many, many reasons. The vacancy was created by the resignation of our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services and a reorganization of duties within that very important department. I'd like to spend just a little bit of time talking about Allison and her background with all of you. She is not new to Livonia Public Schools, although she will be new to this role. Allison is currently our finance manager in Livonia Public Schools and is responsible for many, many operations within our finance and business department, specifically accounts payable, accounts receivable, and our grant programs, and many other payroll and many other pieces that are really integral to our operations. So in addition to that, she's also worked very, very closely with Lisa Abbey. And with that, I'd like to just talk a little bit about her background prior to coming to us. So Allison has been with us since 2012. Prior to that, she worked for the University of Michigan as an accountant. Soon they saw her talents, and she became an accounting supervisor in relatively short order. We were very, very fortunate to select her as our candidate to come over to our department. And again, we saw those same strengths in her. Allison has some very unique talents. She not only has a bachelor's degree in accounting, she has an MBA in general business, and she also has her Chief Financial Officer certification. She is extraordinarily well qualified on paper, but even as much so in person. She is extremely detail-oriented, highly collaborative. She has just a work ethic that is second to none. We could not be more pleased to bring a recommendation for Allison to lead us in this department. As you know, and as I've spoken with you, we'll have some reorganization of duties. And we'll be isolating a bit the finance and business office responsibilities and the operations, although those will still continue, as you can see why, from our previous presentation, why those will certainly go hand in hand. We just could not be more pleased to be adding Allison as a member of our cabinet team. We are thrilled to bring this recommendation to you. Many of her colleagues are sitting to her right, and I think are just as pleased. So although we know we have certainly, as we've acknowledged this evening, a great loss in having Lisa leave us, I will tell you there is tremendous stability, knowledge, and collaboration that comes with the recommendation of Allison, our Director of Finance. So we could not be happier to bring you the recommendation for her for this leadership position.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members? Seeing none, we will take a vote, and then Allison will invite you up to say a few words. We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take a roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, Allison.
Just want to say how excited I am for this opportunity. I am a proud Livonia Public Schools graduate, and I'm excited to be back in the district in this new capacity. I truly love coming to work. This is such a great place, great community. I'm very excited about this. So I wanted to say thank you to my family. Thank you for their continued support, for my husband Rodney, who couldn't be here tonight, for my mom Ann Murray, who is in the audience. Special thank you to the business office who is behind me. They make it a truly wonderful place to come every day. Just love it. Thank you to Miss Abby. She's been a wonderful mentor these past 4 years, and I've learned so much under her. And lastly, I want to thank Superintendent Oquist and the Board of Education. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very, very pleased and very, happy to take on this new role. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Well,
And having had a little bit of turnover in our cabinet with our superintendent role, I can't tell you how much reassurance, Allison, it gives the Board of Education to know that we're hiring someone so very capable and so competent who also is coming from within our own school district. So you know us, you get us. There's a lot of comfort in knowing we don't have someone who's going to come in here and try to lurch the ship into a different direction that we don't necessarily want it to go in. So anyway, thank you very much for the comfort that you give our school district and the confidence that I'm absolutely hearing from everybody who works with you that you can bring to our district in this new role. The next item on our agenda is item 8B, Teachers for Approval. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. Laura.
Thank you. Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and offer employment for the 2016-17 school year to the teachers listed on the attached document.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Laura, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mr. Winry, would you like to address this for us?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a fairly good-sized list of teachers tonight that's indicative of the time of the year that we're at and the fact that it's been about a month since our last regular meeting, and so we've got about 16 or so teachers to bring before you. They've all been interviewed along with other candidates, and these teachers have been deemed to be the most qualified teachers to enter into our instructional program as our staff. And we heartily recommend that you approve their employment.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from board or superintendent? No? Seeing none, my only comment is congratulations and welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
We have a motion by Mrs. Laura, supported by Mr. Johnson. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Yes. Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is 8C, Teachers for Recall. May we have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mrs. McDonald.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia's Board of Education accept the recommendations of the superintendent and recall the district employment as teachers for 2016-17 school year for the persons listed on the attached document dated September 19th, 2016.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Winry, would you like to address this for us, please?
Yes, thank you. You'll recall that the board authorized staff to begin recalling teachers on June 6th, and since that time, we have been diligently calling teachers back. I want to add that process is really coordinated by Phil Francis, the Assistant Director of Human Resources. He's done a great job bringing the teachers back to work. The last time we met, we told you that we were continuing to make progress, and sure enough, we have 7 more teachers recalled, and that brings this list down to 2 teachers left, one from 2013 and one from 2012. So we recommend the approval of the current list of recalls.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from board members or the superintendent?
We are very, very pleased to have our folks back.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we thank the folks who work all summer at the enormous jigsaw puzzle that is called personnel. A lot of folks, they get shifted around over the summertime, and we need to make sure that we are in compliance and putting folks where they can best serve. So thank you very much to both you, Dana, and to Phil for all the work you do in this area. We have a motion by Mrs. McDonald, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 8D, Teachers for Tenure. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton?
Mrs. Bonnefield.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and grant tenure status to the following teachers effective on their respective dates. Anne Marie Connors, September 8, 2016. Megan Brustel, September 19, 2016. Leanne Kukta, August 30, 2016. Kimberly Maybe, September 22nd, 2016. Jennifer Penny, September 9, 2016. Rachel Robertson, September 15, 2016. Laura Schaefer, August 31, 2016. Laura Shannon, September 22, 2016. Patricia Smith, September 8, 2016. Claire Walker, September 19, 2016. Jennifer Warwick, August 25, 2016.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mr. Winery, would you like to
Thank
address
you.
this one?
Yes, affirmative reports and tenure recommendations have been received by principals for all the teachers listed in this report, and all of them will complete the requirements for tenure on the dates just enumerated by Board Member Bonnefield. And staff recommends that you accept the recommendation of the superintendent and grant the tenure status to these teachers.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board or superintendent or comments? Mrs. Bonnefield?
I apologize for messing up anybody's name.
Yeah, had a long list there.
Sorry.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. This is a big milestone in folks' professional career. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Bonnefield, supported by Mrs. McDonald. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
And President Burton?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8D, Teachers for Tenure. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Oop, I'm sorry, you know what, I appear to, nope, I skipped over
Leaves.
8E.
8E,
Leaves of-
sorry. 8E. I was off one on my list here. 8E, leaves of absence. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton.
Mr. Centers.
Move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District accept the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the request for leaves of absence as listed below. Tracy Cruz, J.D. Kift, Courtney Ewan.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mr. Winry.
Thank you. Our collective bargaining agreement permits employees to request and be granted leaves of absences if they meet certain requirements, and these employees have all met the eligibility requirements for these leaves of absence. So staff recommends that the board approve these leaves.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Centers, supported by Mrs. Laura. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8F, resignations. There is no motion needed on this item. This is for board purposes only. The next item on our agenda is 8G, retirements. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mrs. Jarvis.
move that the Board of Education of the Livonia Public Schools School District adopt the attached resolutions of appreciation for the services rendered by Sharon Belcher, Veronica Blank, and Phyllis Spouts.
Support.
We have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mr. Winry.
Thank you. And thankfully, this is a small list, given again the time of the year we are at. There's only 3 employees. All employees to which we would like to express our thanks and appreciation for their loyalty and their service to the district. I would want to, in this particular case, point out one in particular, Sharon Belcher, who has 37 and a half years of service, very significant, and also add that she served for an extended period of time as the president of the Secretaries Association, so kind of an added hat that she wore here.
Sounds great. Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mrs. Jarvis, supported by Mr. Centers. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mrs. Jarvis.
Yes.
Mr. Centers.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Laura.
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald.
Yes.
Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 8H, approval of contract LEA. May I have a motion, please?
President Burton,
Mr. Johnson.
move that the Board of Education enter into a 1-year contract with the Livonia Education Association, whose agreement has been ratified by LEA members. Said contract shall continue until August 15, 2017.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mr. Winry.
Thank you. The bargaining committee for the district has been meeting on a regular basis over an extended period of time with representatives from the Livonia Education Association, otherwise known as the LEA. The parties reached a tentative settlement, and the terms of that settlement have been ratified by the association. They've been presented to the board in a closed session on August 15th. We recommend approval of the settlement agreement as recommended to the board, being fair, consistent with other settlements, and consistent with the guidelines established by the Board of Education earlier this year.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Mrs. Bonnefield?
I just want to thank everybody involved for their participation, and I just really appreciate everybody's hard work, and that we were able to come to a settlement on this. And it's great for the district, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Centers?
We talk it seems like every meeting about the budget and things happening in Lansing. Still continues to be a very tough time to be a public employee, a teacher. There's a lot of expectations, and there are fewer resources for districts. That being said, both sides worked really hard to come to an agreement, to find common ground. Many hours, lots of effort. I want to thank both sides for being open-minded and doing the best they can in these situations. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Oquist?
Thank you. We are very pleased to have successfully come to an agreement with all of our valued employee groups. I want to echo much of what my colleagues on the board have already said, but we have worked through significantly challenging budget times in our district that has involved significant wage stagnation for all of our folks. And so we have had an opportunity to really have some deep and important dialogue about what that means. We are very pleased to have the agreement this evening with our Livonia Education Association that provides just such an essential service each and every day in educating our children. I'd like to make special thanks to our chief negotiator, Dana Winnery, who has worked on each one of these contracts with all of our bargaining groups. Lisa Abbey, who has been an integral part of that process as well, many members of cabinet, and I certainly like to thank the many members of the Livonia Education bargaining team, led by the President Priscilla David, Vice President and Chief Negotiator Doug Coates. We have a new member of the team here this evening, Marcy Falegi, who is the new Executive Director. You have not had a chance to meet her, but hopefully she'll come up soon when we shake hands. We're very, very pleased to have her as our partner on board and working with our district. And so we had a lot of folks working very hard under tough circumstances. And we are very, very pleased this evening to have now successfully completed agreements with all of our groups, and we continue to look forward to positive days ahead. So thank you to all involved.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Seeing none, we have a motion by Mr. Johnson, supported by Mrs. Jarvis. Mrs. Bonnefield, will you please take the roll?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Jarvis?
Yes.
Mr. Centers?
Yes.
Mrs. Laura?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald? Yes. Mrs. Bonnefield says yes. President Burton?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Congratulations, and as is our custom, if we could have Priscilla David and Marcy, I'm so sorry.
Falegi.
Marcy Falegi, I'm sorry, new name for me. Come forward, we would like to congratulate and thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Yes, nice meeting you also.
Good to be here. There's two. Yes.
I have never in my life signed a contract I didn't bargain, and now I've signed two in 1 week.
Make you nervous?
Good thing I've read them.
Thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Nice to meet you. Congratulations again, and thank you to the efforts of all of our teachers and all of our staff that serve our district every single day. It's sincerely appreciated. The next item on our agenda is item 9, reports from the superintendent. Mrs. Oquist.
Thank you, President Burton. Just a couple of updates this evening. I think we've had some really key highlights already shared with us. But I just wanted to mention the presentations that were shared this evening from Mrs. Jenkins, highlighting the renovations of our bond, from Mrs. Alice, our Chief Academic Officer, who shared the highlights of professional development that took place this summer, many of which were some of our key PD. We know that our teachers and our staff are involved in continuous professional development throughout the summer. It's a bit of a misconception that folks have the, quote, summers off. Professional development and professional growth is a very important part of who we are and what we do. And one of the things that struck me as we prepared the agenda for this evening and we listened to these presentations is that we are a district that does not rest on its laurels. We are continually looking at ways to innovate, to improve both our opportunities for students, our resources for staff, and the facilities for our community. I'll tell you, it's a very proud day to be superintendent in Livonia for many, many reasons, but those were just a couple of the highlights that we had to share. I think we've shared this already at the start of this school year, but to open a school year takes many, many hands and many, many hours. And beyond the time of the constraints of a typical day, we know that our staff from the secretaries in our offices, to the building supervisors in our schools, to the teachers in the classroom, and the principals coordinating all of that. I'm sure I'm forgetting some folks, but many folks have spent a lot of time, not just from 8 to 5, but on weekends and on Labor Day weekend, and in many evenings in their home. Having been a former teacher, I know what I remember, I vaguely remember all that it takes to get the school year started. We also have many folks here that are not in the schools. Our central office staff works tirelessly to serve our school district. They are here throughout this entire summer. And so although this is the kickoff season for all of us in the schools, the things that take place here in June, July, and August are a big piece of the foundation of why we can get school up and running as we do. So just a huge shout out to our central office staff who come in each day in the summer, and we enjoy one another. We have a tremendous team here, and what they do really does show their commitment to our students in big and little ways each and every day. So just wanted to just point that out. And again, a fond farewell to our friend, and just a warm welcome to Allison. So I think we've come full circle, and boy, are we fortunate to have those folks be part of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 10, hearing from board members. As has become customary for our Board of Education, rather than hearing 7 of us thank everybody individually, and you'll be here till midnight, we've decided quite a long time ago to ask one board member to be appointed that evening to take care of a lot of thank yous and a lot of appreciation on behalf of the board. By all means, if there are other board members who would like to add anything else, you will certainly be given the opportunity. This evening, Mr. Johnson is going to offer thanks on behalf of the Board of Education.
Thank you, President Burton. And I think Mrs. Oquist has been stealing my notes.
Well, you sat pretty close.
Yeah, I'm going to have to. So I'm not going to reiterate everything that she said, but obviously the board echoes all of those sentiments. You know, we saw tonight on from the presentation from Mrs. Jenkins, just how well this money is being spent. The community entrusted us, and they had enough confidence in us in May of 2013 to approve a $195 million bond. And if you start to look at all the improvements that have been made over the last 3 years, sort of culminating with our performing arts centers, I can't wait to go in and see that. This board was in there in April, I believe, and you saw one of the photographs that showed some equipment in there, and there was dirt on the floor. And quite honestly, I have to admit, when I walked in from the back side of that auditorium on that particular day, I sort of looked at President Burton and said, this doesn't really look so great. But then we went around to the front and came up at the very back where the lighting is. And when we looked out, then you could envision what it looked like, even without the auditorium seating in there. And to now see what it looks like is amazing. And I can only imagine that the folks at Stevenson are going, ooh, when do we get ours? When do we get ours? It's coming. And again, we want to thank the community for entrusting to this board and to our staff to put these things together and make this happen. We appreciate that. Congratulations, Allison. We really look forward to working with you. I think you're going to be a great addition. You got some big shoes to fill, but we're confident that you'll do just fine. Congratulations to our teachers that were granted tenure, those who are resigning and moving on to the next chapter in their life, whatever that might be. I also wanted to note that our fall athletics are in full swing. If you haven't had an opportunity to go out and cheer on one of our sports teams, do so. They would appreciate it, and I can tell you the competition is great. So get out if you can. Over the weekend, in light of what has happened once again to our country, a big thank you goes out to our first responders. You know, they did such a tremendous job in tracking down and finding this individual. And even at our local level, you know, if you see a police officer, you see a fireman, stop them and tell them. We went to the Stevenson football game on Friday night, and there was an officer standing at the gate. And my wife and I, we had my son with us, and my wife took the opportunity to go over to the officer and just tell him how much she appreciated what he does every day for our community. You should have seen the look in that officer's face. He said, "We really appreciate that." So if you get the opportunity, do so. They put their lives on the line every day to make us safe. So if you get the opportunity, thank a police officer or a fireman. And you know, while I was sitting here, one of the things President Burton said was, "Ms. Abby, would you like to address that for us?" I'm going to miss that. You know, it's with all due respect to the rest of our cabinet who are absolutely wonderful, I'm going to miss the glue that you bring to the board. You seem to have all the information that we've ever wanted. You have it at your fingertips. We're able to go to you and say, "Ms. Abby, we need this," or "Can you get us this information?" And you've always been there to help and guide us. And I think I speak for the entire board. Thank you. And best of luck.
Thank you. And it takes a team. You've got a good one.
Thank you.
And President Burton, that's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any other board members who would like to share comments this evening? You've got a flock. Mrs. Jarvis.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a shout out to the marching band at Churchill High School. As you may remember, last year they were the largest band in Livonia history. They had 145 kids. This year, they have 178.
Wow.
And if you have a chance to hear what 178 kids sounds like, it's amazing.
Impressive.
It's very impressive. Hardworking kids. All of the band kids I know are hardworking, and this is their busy season. So, you know, regardless of which high school, if you see a band kid, give them a pat on the back. But, wow, I hope you get to hear what 178 kids sounds like.
Thank you. Mr. Centers, I believe you had your hand up also?
I just, we have our foundation president in the audience today, and we have an event that typically kicks off the school year, and there's a lot of planning and work that goes into that event, and this year happened to be on the stormiest day of the year, but I want to, you know, at least acknowledge the hard work that the foundation does, so thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Comments you'd like to share?
I just have one more quick comment.
Mrs. Opus, that's okay. Jump right in.
You're looking at my notes again.
I was, and you had a few good ones. So I just wanted to also mention we are in full swing not only with our athletics and our special events out at the schools, but our open houses. We are in open house season and curriculum nights, and I have to say, our schools have been packed. And so, you know, we've certainly acknowledged our staff and the folks that it takes to pull off those evenings and to bring them together. But I have to tell you, our parents are showing up. And those are the evenings that get us started and get things going on the right foot. If your school is yet, for our large audience that is out there listening, if your school has yet to hold their curriculum night or open house, please make sure that it's a must-attend evening for you and your family. Our teachers prepare tremendous amounts of materials and information. Oftentimes, principals will host an initial information portion for the parents. Our foundation is there at our K-4 schools to highlight the Competitive Edge offering, which is the start of a college savings program for every incoming kindergarten student. There is so much to learn about and to partner with your child's school. So if you have the opportunity to attend, please do, but it has been great. My colleagues and I have been out to our open houses, and we have just been blown away with the amount of parent involvement and parent support out there for their students. So we welcome you as partners.
Thank you. And several of our school events have been mentioned this evening. For those of you who may like to attend, again, we'd love to have you. Our senior citizens get free admission to many of our events, including our sporting events, so do check that out and take advantage of it. We are thrilled to pieces to have you there. For those of you who may not have reached senior citizen status yet, we also have school-wide passes for many of our events. So if you have a specific school that's near and dear to your heart, consider picking up a pass and attending many of their events throughout the year. We are thrilled to pieces to have you as partners and have you joining some of those celebratory events with all of us. I don't have anything else this evening that has not already been stated many times, some of them. So I will wish you a very nice evening. We are now adjourned. Thank you.